oh my God, what if the rest of the book is like this? What if nobody buys it? Oh my God, what if I never work again?
Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, Anna Geary's new book, Anna's Game Plan, is an extraordinary new book. Drawing on her experiences, Anna reveals the transformative power of mindset in achieving true happiness and true success. With 5 practical tactics, she provides a toolkit to overcome overwhelm, focusing on what truly matters. Backed by personal stories and behavioural science insights, I'm delighted to say Anna joins me on the show. Anna, how's it going?
Hi, Karl. Thank you so much for that introduction. You're very kind.
I saw you on Instagram opening the box of your book. Oh my goodness. I've never seen someone happier. Mother of God.
Do you know, I think it was twofold. It was the happiness that it was finally finished, but it was also it was a very surreal moment. And, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to put it online or not, because, you know, the minute you put a moment like that online, you open yourself up to everything that comes with that. But I recorded it just for me because, you know, it's kind of one of those moments where I talk a lot in the book, and even in general, the last few years, with stepping out of your comfort zone and trying new things. And I had never been more outside my comfort zone than I was writing that book. It was just so far away from other things that I've done, like whether that was radio and TV. And I say that to people and they laugh at me like, you work on live TV. How would this? I was like, but this was more daunting because it was my stories. Mm-hmm. It was, you know, me stripping things back, revealing myself sometimes in ways I have never done before, and putting all of the tips and the tools and the techniques that I use when I'm feeling stuck in a rut or I'm having to overcome setbacks, putting all that down on paper. And suddenly you're seeing it there between 2 covers thinking, wow, like, I hope people like this now. I really felt like the child back in the schoolyard again, thinking, I hope people like me. And that's the way it was, I suppose. It's, you know, the fruition of all that, holding that book in my hands, which is here right now, shameless plug.
Plug away. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, but it felt really surreal and quite emotional. I wasn't expecting to get that emotional.
Oh yeah, well, it's very personal, and it's different to Instagram or TV work. It's a much more personal experience, I think, when you put all the work into writing and then all of a sudden, ta-da! You know, it's
now you know this.
Daunting.
You've multiple books. So
I know I do, but it's very scary though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think for me, at the start, when I was writing the book, I had all of these thoughts, all these stories, all this advice that I wanted to impart to people and get it down on paper. But I didn't think I'd have enough in terms of word count. By the end of it, you know, Penguin were saying, no, sorry, there's no more going into the book. You know, you're at your limit. We're cutting you off. Because as I started to write, I realized, oh my God, this would be really valuable for somebody. So would this story. Oh, so would this. And it's amazing. Like, I suppose, you know, I love the idea of always being able to improve our health and well-being, whether that's reading books, whether that's listening to podcasts like yours. And, you know, it's always trying to find those little 1% that will, you know, make you get through your day a little bit better. So for me to be able to put stuff into this book, I wanted to make it, number one, practical. Like, that for me was so important. Like, I love the idea of having a coffee table book, but that's not what I want for this book. I want this book to have corners turned down, coffee stains on the pages, writing in the margins. I want it to be in your, you know, in your handbag or at your bedside table or even in the bathroom when you lock yourself in away from the kids for a few minutes, whatever it is.
You now get a taste of why people do that. Now that you have a baba at home.
Yeah, and let me tell you, talking about reevaluating priorities and what's important in perspective, that's all in the book too, because I've learned that. And just being able to put all that in from a practical point of view, allowing people to do simple exercises to actually make them have these moments where they go, I never thought about it like that. Like, that was really important for me for this, because we all have those moments where you'll read a piece of, you know, an article or listen to a podcast and something will speak to you. And you think, oh my God, I'm going to try that. And I really wanted to put as much of that in as possible and just simplify, I suppose, the psychology and the science behind why we do what we do, just to help people to understand themselves a little bit better.
Chat me through the power of saying yes. Let's start there.
Yeah, like, for me, I think, you know, a lot of us talk about the idea of saying no and learning to say no better. And I'm a big advocate for that as well, because I think, you know, we sometimes will say things to people please and we'll say yes to people please. And whatever you're saying yes to, you are saying no to something else that's a priority in your life. But I suppose for me, I wanted to come at it in a different way and say, you know what, sometimes we need to get out of our own way and actually say yes. And I suppose you know this, and a lot of people will have read before, the idea that our default in our brains is to say no. It's a protection mechanism. But when you say no to something, maybe it's out of fear of judgment or fear of failure or whatever it is, because people will think, oh, this one's got notions about herself if she says yes to this. You kind of cut off that possibility and that opportunity. So I suppose when I looked back in my career so far, and even life in general, you know, whether that was saying yes to Ireland's Fittest Family and be a coach, saying yes to Dancing with the Stars, to the Cork Rose of Tralee, you know, all of those things, I said yes to them. Half terrified, half like unsure of myself, half wondering, was I making the right call? But when you say yes to something, you give yourself time to think it through. You actually can plan it out in your head. But the minute you say no, you cut it off. So I would always say to people, you know, if in doubt, say yes. And then you can work out later about how to do it. And there's really good strategies in the book about how to start building the habit of saying yes. So, for example, one of them is my 365 yeses. So it's very simple. Every single day, you say yes to something that you would usually say no to. And like, Karl, that could be something as simple as you're walking down the fruit and veg aisle in the supermarket and you see this odd shaped looking vegetable. And you're like, what's that? And instead of saying no to it, you pick it up, you go home and you cook it. And you know, you're putting a new vegetable into your diet. Or you're taking the stairs when you're usually taking the lift. Or you're saying yes to that date. Whatever it is, just when you're defaulting, you think, I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no. Say yes to it. And in a year, you're going to have said yes to 365 new things. And, you know, like a lot of people, one opportunity leads on to another. One yes leads on to another. So maybe you're saying yes to the date that ends up being the love of your life. Or maybe you uncover your new favorite vegetable or a new gym class that you were too afraid to go to. So that's, I suppose, for me, sometimes we need to get out of our own way. And if you're forcing yourself to say yes, what you're actually doing is you're creating that habit. And like, we all need to put that mindset in place. And for a lot of people, we all want to be perfect at everything we do, because obviously that's social media now. It's whether that's the diet, the exercise regime, the house, the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to make something brilliant or to improve upon a habit, you have to put it in place first. So we have to kind of teach ourselves to say yes. So that's, I suppose, that the challenge is just saying yes to one thing, and it goes from there then.
Because being comfortable is easy, isn't it? It's easy to be comfortable, especially as we get a little bit older, and just stay in that zone of I'm grand, and I'll say no to this and no to that, or no to the wedding, or no to the whatever, because I'm grand. But it's about nudging yourself out of that.
Yeah, and I love that word nudging, because I think that's what it is. Sometimes people have this idea that it has to be a huge change, and you have to say yes to a huge thing. Like what I call them is tweaks, like not even improvements, because improvement, sometimes even that word, like it's loaded and people feel a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of having to improve. But if you're making tweaks here and there, and that, you know, it even the word itself, it's just tiny, tiny adjustments. And, you know, I think for me, when I was starting to put things into the book, and I was thinking, what would I like to read? You know, what are all the little things that I have learned that I use every single day? And I suppose for me, whether it's, you know, at the highest of highs, the lowest of lows in your life, there's always things and different ways and different techniques that you lean on. And I suppose for me, I've tried to put what I lean on and what I use every day into the book as well, so it might help other people.
And one thing we do now in the era of, I feel old when I say the era of social media, but like in the world of era of Instagram, and you know, I haven't gone any further than I haven't gone to TikTok. I'm sick with Instagram.
I'm there. It's a scary place to time. Yeah.
We compare though, don't we? Like one of the things that we do now, we compare our lives to that person who's doing that mad workout, or that person who has the perfect family kitchen that's like always spotless, or whatever. You know, there's a lot of that going on, and that kind of keeps us stuck in that kind of comfort zone space, because then we're like, oh, I'm never going to be like them, or I'm never going to be as fit as them, or whatever. And that's part of the issue we're facing now, is that we're comparing all the time, and it's in our hands that we compare.
Yeah, and I think as well, often when you're looking at what everyone else is doing, and like you said, you're comparing yourself to, you know, that idea of your chapter 1 versus their chapter 30. So, you know, if I was trying to start running in the morning and I compared my running ability to yours, I mean, I'm going to give that up pretty quickly, because you're a seasoned runner, you're used to running marathons and you're used to doing ultra marathons, and I can't even run 10K comfortably. So I suppose it really is starting to become aware of, you know, even on social media, who you're following, why you're following them. Do they essentially make you feel good about yourself? Do they inspire you? Do they motivate you? And I won't lie, like in the past year, I've probably muted people's accounts just because I'm not in the headspace where I want to watch them. You know, I've had a baby, I'm coming back to training. I had to take a long time off, you know, postpartum to get my body right. And sometimes you don't need to see other people in the gym for 2 hours or with their 8-pack, not even their 6-pack. I'm like, that's not good for me right now. And I think becoming aware of that is really important. And one of the sections in the book is all around that awareness and that idea that once you become aware of something, then you can control it. And when you can control it, you can change it. And I think what you said there, Karl, is really important, that for a lot of us, we stay in our comfort zone because when we step out of it, there's so much we can't control. And personally, I think that is one of the most terrifying places to be, when you're in a situation and you can't control it, or you don't know what the outcome is going to be.
That's because you're a control freak like I am. That's the reason for that.
And I think everybody in some way, shape or form feels when you have that loss of control, it can be really daunting. So that's basically what your comfort zone is you're on autopilot mode.
Yeah.
You have the same breakfast, you go the same route to work, you wear the same clothes sometimes to work Monday to Friday. You're doing the same thing. And because your brain as well loves that, because it doesn't have to make any new decisions. It knows automatically what's going to happen. But the minute you deviate away from that, cortisol levels, the stress goes up, the sweaty palms, the butterflies, all of these things. But that stuff is good as well, because we all need to feel that every now and again. That's my personal take in it, whether that's going on a new date, or whether that is, standing up in front of your work colleagues and giving a presentation, or going back and taking a new college course. That kind of those jitters, I think we all need that, because otherwise everything just feels a bit mundane. And like, there's nothing wrong with the mundane. Sometimes we need the mundane as well.
It's like the first date effect. I call it the first date effect.
Yeah.
It's like, or the blind date effect, where you haven't a clue what you're walking into and you're kind of excited and kind of scared at the same time.
Yeah. And I think if you keep telling yourself, oh, that date is going to be crap and I'm not going to be attracted to them, and they're going to speak funny, and we're not going to have anything to talk about in common. Well, if you keep telling yourself, oh, that, then you'll almost like it'll bring it to life. Whereas if you go into something and like, you know what, this might be the love of my life, or I might end up having a great conversation with somebody, even if there isn't that spark there, and you start to set yourself up in that more positive way, then you're far more likely to have that outcome. It's not guaranteed, but it's more, it's more of a chance of paying off than if you're going, oh my God, when do I get to leave? And I suppose from years of sport, I learned that you can be the fastest, the fittest, the strongest player of the pitch. But if you don't have the right mindset, if that between your 2 ears isn't what you work on as much as being in the gym and doing your cardio and getting physically fit, you can't work on that. Well, to me, that's what really separates from living an okay life to living a great life. And I think, in the book, I talk as well a lot about, this idea of positivity. And I think sometimes people feel that in order to be positive, you need to be bright and sparky and everything has to be great.
All the time.
Yeah. First of all, that's bloody exhausting. Like, who wants to live like that? And if you're following somebody on Instagram that's like that, please don't follow them. It's not good for your health. But, my idea, I suppose, really is that being positive and starting to think in a positive mindset, or a growth mindset, like people might have heard of before, it's that idea that even if you are in the crap, and even if everything is just upside down, it's knowing that it can come right again. That eventually, if you keep moving forward one step at a time, finding ways to get you out of it, it will come right again.
It's managing those negative emotions, isn't it? Like, that's what you're really kind of chatting about, that we all have them. I have them, you have them, everyone has them. But what separates one person from the next is how we manage them and how we deal with them. And then we commit to those big scary goals, or those big scary tasks, and we commit to working towards them over the course of time.
Yeah, and I think, Karl, that's a really valid point. Everybody has negative thoughts, negative emotion, and negative experiences, and like, that's normal. Sometimes I think we're nearly made to believe that we should ignore those things. Like, we need to lean into that stuff. Like, we need to lean into the negative thoughts and actually try and figure out why we're having them. But I suppose one of the things, even from sport, that I realized, and even from just general life and ups and downs, is that, just because you're having a thought doesn't mean it's a fact. And I think sometimes fact checking your thoughts is really important. So whether that's some of the things that, even like the idea of that negative thought loop. So, and I had to, I suppose, even writing the book, I had this where you think, oh, I'm having writer's block, I'm finding this is really hard. And suddenly then you think, it's gone from one single negative thought to, oh my God, what if the rest of the book is like this? What if nobody buys it? Oh my God, what if I never work again? And you completely exasperate and catastrophize, and you've spiraled like what was one single thought out of control. So I suppose for me, I've learned, in the years gone by, to just stop to kind of almost like write down the thought or even say it out loud and be like, okay, is this actually a fact?
Mm-hmm.
Like, will nobody buy your book? No, your family buy it. Nobody else will. Your family will still buy it. So that's not a fact. No, like people are going to buy the book. And then if you're saying, okay, well, if I can't take my mind off that negative thought and it really is just starting to weigh on me, distract yourself. So for me, it might be going for a walk or going to the gym, like having to concentrate on something else. For someone else, could be reading a book or doing a crossword or going on to Duolingo and, you know, learning their Irish, whatever it is. Distracting yourself away from the thought, it just kind of allows it sometimes to be smaller when you come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I suppose the third thing that I do when it comes to negative thoughts is sometimes just, you know, this idea sometimes of mindfulness, again, people can say, not for me, overwhelming, I'm not into it. But like in its most basic state, breathing is mindfulness. So sometimes I'll actually, whether I'll go into, you know, if I'm out, I'll go into a bathroom cubicle, or I'll sit in my bedroom or whatever it is, even out for a walk. And it's just 60 seconds of breathing to kind of almost like bring all my central nervous system just to calm down, like, you're okay. But you mentioned Ronan at the start. And I think for me, like having Ronan, and he's 6 months old now, has been the biggest perspective giver. Yeah, it really has. And I've started to realize that things in the past that would have worried me, or things in the past that really would have almost like weighed on my mind, now I don't really have time to be thinking about those things, because I have a little human to look after, and I have to keep all these plates juggling. And I start to ask myself now, sometimes I'll say it out loud. So if you ever meet me and I'm asking myself this question, just walk on by, okay? And I will say, will this matter in a week? Because if it's not going to matter in a week, stop stressing about it right now. And it's almost like I'm challenging myself, because I am a bit of an overthinker. I am like like I really do worry unnecessarily at times.
No, never.
Yeah.
Never.
And I'm notoriously a people pleaser, which I'm really trying to work on. So now it's like, will it matter? So if you have to cancel, you know, on somebody, or if you have to, you know, even sometimes cancelling at work, if your little one is sick, or your partner or whatever, will it matter in a week? And I think sometimes that for me is really good to break that kind of negative thinking.
When you're writing a book, you have an editor who reviews the book and gives you some constructive criticism.
Oh yeah,
that's a big thing for you, isn't it? That whole sense of constructive criticism, and that goes back to when you did your first gig for RTE, when you were commentating on the game, and that's an important element to people's kind of journey of their own game plan. Is that someone will throw you maybe some constructive criticism and to be able to take it.
Like, I think it's really important. Again, we compliments are brilliant, and we all need encouragement. And like, you know, we all hear about like our support structures and our support systems and our circles. But I personally think the best type of support you have is the one that you have a trust with to give you constructive feedback. Because, you know, we all need that, whether sometimes we need to be reeled in, said, hang on there now, steady on with yourself, calm down. Or you're told this is how you could make it better, or whatever it is. Like, we all need that to improve. And I think it's how we look at constructive criticism and feedback is what's really important. And like, I suppose at that, from, you know, my previous lifetime of playing in sport, I got constructive feedback every single time I played a game. Like, the manager would always say, well, you did this well, or, you know, you could work on this. And even when I work with younger people and when I'm training teams or anything, I have what's called a positive sandwich. And I think, to be honest, any managers out there, I think could really, or even if you kids, can work really well. So you start with something that they've done really well. You know, you squeeze in the thing that they need to improve on in the middle, and then you finish with something else that, you know, that they did well. So it's almost like you've given them the constructive feedback, but you've reinforced what they've done well too, because it's easy to dwell on the negatives. It's easy to dwell on all the things that, you know, make us flawed or that we need to work on. But Jesus, if we forget the good stuff, sure, our confidence is going to be in our boots. And I think with me, even, I can still remember, you know, my dad, and my dad had a really good mischievous way of giving me feedback. And like, I could score 3-7 in a game, give players match, but he'll still have a way of reminding me about that score that I ran up the pitch on the left-hand side and put it wide, and be like, you know, what were you thinking? And I remember working with Mjolnir Hertig back in 2010. And Mjolnir Hertig, for people that might know, was literally like the voice of GAA, like in the past few decades. Now, Marty Morrissey's there as well. I have to give Marty a shout out. But
well saved, Anna. Well saved.
Yeah. Growing up, you know, Micheál, it was just, you know, his voice and how he could paint a picture with these words on the radio and on TV. But I had the honour of co-commentating in an All-Ireland final with him. And I remember coming home and the next day, rushing into the kitchen, wanting to know what my dad thought, how did he think I was. I wanted specifics, you know. And of course I wanted him to tell me that I did great. My dad was reading the newspaper and kind of looked up, you know, so he could just see his eyes over the top of the newspaper. He's like, oh yeah, You did all right. Went back to reading the paper. I was like, no, I need more specifics. Come on. And then he just jumped. He's like, did you hear about Micheál Marthig? And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, he just announced today that he's retiring. And like, I think I was maybe in late teens, early 20s. I was thinking, oh my God, I was one of the last people ever to co-commentate with Micheál Marthig. And I was feeling pretty smug about myself. And my dad, I think, got that. And he probably thought, the ego might be getting a bit inflated here. So in my dad's true style, he turned around and said, imagine that man has given decades to broadcasting and 1 hour with you and he decides to And that was my dad's very gentle, like loving way of saying, hang on there now, don't get too carried away. And I think we all I really appreciate that, particularly as I got older. You do need people that aren't afraid to give you that feedback, and find somebody in your circle and that is going to give you that feedback, because we all need it.
Anna Geary, we could chat all day. That's the problem when we catch up. The very best luck with the new book, Anna's Game Plan. It is in stores nationwide from what date's it out, just in case?
So yeah, so it's out the 7th of March. So it's just out now, only a few days. And I suppose it's really important for me that, I love hearing people's feedback, and so there's something in there for everywhere. Like, I should have really touched on the 5 tactics. The 5 sections of the book are acceptance, purpose, consistency, challenge, and kindness. And it's all about the tactics that I use in all of those areas of my life. And I suppose like that, it's what helps me to live my life in the best way that I can. And hopefully people will enjoy it, and they'll enjoy hearing the stories. And I would love to hear people's feedback on it too, because like that is the only way that we learn.
Well, I've no doubt they will. I got a sneak peek a couple of weeks ago. It is amazing, folks, and it is in bookstores nationwide. And it's great to catch up, and I'll see you in person very, very soon.
Thanks, Karl.
Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. As ever, have a wonderful week. You know where we are, at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, realhealth@independent.ie. And we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.